This is Alyssa, and she is joining us for an intuitive reading. Whee! I'm so excited. Um, and so I'm just gonna hop in. Actually, Alyssa, did you have a burning question?
No, it was more just kind of like career based and like what can make me happy in that sense.
Right. So I'm going to give a little bit of a background. Alyssa and were on a phone call recently, and she's like, "I'm taking a new job," and then I started to tell her things, and she's like, "I'm totally weirded out." So what I told her on the phone call, if I remember exactly or I remember correctly, and guides, I need the insight. So Alyssa just took a new job. She started 3 days ago. Although she left longer than that. I think she gave herself about a 5 day break, including the weekend before. Am I right? That feels right. 5 days feels about right. She gave herself a little bit of time before she actually like started the new job to give herself time to transition. But when she was about to transition and she told me she was going to transition, stepping back into that moment, I feel like that she is in a placeholder of a job. This is not the job. This is a job. And I feel like you'll stay 2 to 5 years. Like, I feel like you'll stay 2 to 5 years. I feel like you'll learn a lot. You'll see a lot. I think it'll be a different fit because the role is different. I don't know that for certain, but I'm stepping into the role is different. The role is a very different role. I feel like it's much more family based and it's much more future oriented rather than them coming into the facility. It's them leaving the facility. If I'm reading that correctly. And I feel like this is actually going to tap you into people more. Before you were like reading a lot of clinical information and you were taking in information, and now you're more sitting with families and asking big questions and exploring the actual needs inside the home. And I feel like it's going to open your door of love for the elderly. And the word that just popped in my head is hospice. I wonder
Okay.
if from here, I know you just got here and you're like, I want to settle in here, right? Why are we talking about forever? Right. But I feel like this is going to open your heart like in a lotus flower that comes up out of the muck, right? You've been in sort of muck and you're coming up and you're growing up and you're going to grow up and you're going to blossom. And when you blossom, I feel like you're going to realize your heart is for family and your heart is for loved ones and your heart is for transition. And I really get the sense that like from here, you're going to find your hospice legs.
Okay.
And I think that's where you will find your sense of soar. I don't think you will burn out in hospice that some people do, right? I feel like
Yeah.
the amount of that what you're called to do is to be somebody who like helps with transition for both the person and for the family members. And I think this is going to give you a little taste of would that really work for you, right? I feel like
Mhm.
because in all honesty, you're still doing some of that clinical stuff. You're still like, oh, you need a commode, we'll have to help you add a commode, or you need a walker, yeah, we'll have to get, or you need to set up O2 to go home. All right, I'll set up O2 for you to go home, right? Like I still feel like there's going to be some of that going on for you, where it's still pretty clinical, but on the same level, you are going to be sitting down and hearing stories and you're going to be hearing concerns about how is mom or dad going to maneuver around the house when mom and dad can't maneuver, but you're out
Mhm.
of like Medicare money days and I can't afford to stay here. um I don't even know if any of that's right actually. So I mean in the sense of like the work that you're doing, like how
Yeah.
it's
No, I mean it's pretty much there, and it's really funny that you bring up hospice because I feel like at one point in time, like I always was like, oh my god, I should be a hospice nurse. So it's kind of funny that you're saying like that's going to bring me to hospice. Because I always thought I was too like I had too much empathy to be in hospice
Mm.
because I would just be a ball of tears all day.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
There's a balance between the two. And part of what we learn here is what is ours and what is not ours.
Mhm.
And the way we learn that is through experiences. And I feel like you'll get those experiences with the family where you realize this isn't my mom going home.
Yeah.
This isn't I don't have to figure out all the ins and outs of this. I just have to give them all the tools they need and it's up to them to figure it out. It's not my family, it's their family.
Yeah.
Right. The line that I said in particular rough situations at the hospital would be like, this is not my story. This is their story. I just happen to be a narrator in this moment. And then I walk away and they continue on with their own story. I just like, or I'm just a side character. Like I'm not even the best friend, right? I'm less than the best friend. If I even, you know, it's like the character who gets the one line in a movie, right? Like I like that's how you are right now.
Okay.
I feel like that is going to teach you that whatever comes next for this family or for this story, it's not your problem, not yours to carry. And I feel like you'll learn that through this experience, which will then transfer over to the hospice world, where you'll be like, I already know it's not my story. I already know this is not my grandmother, this is not my grandfather. Yes, there are tears, and yes, you're appropriately crying, but you're going to learn how to drop it at the door and be like,
Right.
that's not my story. And that is
Right.
what is going to make you so good, because you'll be empathetic at the time, but you'll also realize you're not carrying that home.
Yeah. Yeah. Know how to shut it off.
Exactly. Or not even just shut it off, just be like, I don't take ownership for that.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
this is definitely sad in the moment, but it's not my sadness. It's their
Right.
sadness. And I just like, I have like a therapist and I have some other people in my life who are like, you wrap it up in a package, you put a nice little bow on it, and you hand it back to them because it's not yours.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
don't need to
Yeah.
bring that home.
Yeah. And I think like a big piece of wanting to do this, and why I was so interested when you asked, is like I think everybody wants to be able to find happiness in their career. I
Yeah,
mean, truly, if I didn't have to work at all, I would definitely take that. But I don't want my job to kind of control my life, but I want it to give me some type of joy.
of course. Of course. I mean, if we're going to spend 8 hours times 5 um in a location, and then in reality, when we get home, we run the errands and blah, blah, blah. Like we only spend 3 hours a night at home, really. Like by the time
Yeah.
dinner is over, or not even dinner is over, and the time you have to go to bed, right? You only have 3 hours at home before you're sleeping. And then you have
Yeah.
like the hour at home before you leave in the morning. And then you spend most of your time awake, not at the house, but doing this other thing with these other people who are total strangers that you wouldn't necessarily pick as friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Very weird.
And so doing exactly, it's very weird.
When
Doing
you
a
say
job
it.
that you love is really important, and
Mhm.
finding a way to feel alive while you're doing it, because it is taking you away. And I do see children in your future, right? And I do see like the idea of like, you know, having to put them in daycare because you're in a job, because you are making money just for daycare, right? As that works, right? Like you're like, I want to continue working, but I also know that if I work, that means that I'll bring in maybe, you know, by the time I pay for daycare, I'll be maybe making $200 a month from my own paycheck,
Yes.
right? Like these are things that we know in the United States, but I do see you making the choices that you need to make in order to get to where you want to be. And does
Yeah.
that mean that you stay at home when you have kids? Potentially.
I wish.
There is the potential. You know, I just had one of my colleagues pop in my head. And so what I think that means is there's potential that you'll have like family members help out for 2 days or 3 days a week so you can work part-time. And then
Okay.
you'll be home 2 or 3 days for the kiddos. So that'll like cut down on some of it.
I could live with that. I'm gonna start manifesting that.
For the non-existent children at this moment. Um,
Yeah.
um, and I'm not trying to rush you where you are in life. I do see like the mom heart in you, like the desire to be a mom. And I kind of feel like if you could, you'd be living in the 1800s or maybe even the 1700s. Like if you could, and you could just keep a house and have 17 children running around the house, you would be really happy with that on some level, right? There's another level you're really like hell to the no, right?
Not 17 children.
Yeah, but half the time those will be out in the field, like harvesting whatever it is you're growing. And so,
Taking care of our farm.
yeah, and then they get taken out by all these things, right? They get taken out by, like, the mortality rate is so high back then that 17 might not even
Yeah,
yield you 3 by the time they're adults.
that's true.
Okay,
Oh God.
I'm
Yeah.
joking. But you know what I'm saying. Like, if we were
Yeah.
living in a different time period, there would be a different expectation, and you would be pregnant most of the time.
Yes.
Now, whether or not you were able to carry to term all of those children, right? It was a totally different kind of scenario back then. But I see you being the kind of person that would be like, can I just stay home and bake bread? Like, really honestly, can I stay home and bake bread? And can I please, like, I don't love laundry, but there's another part of me that really loves the laundry. Like, I don't love it, but I kind of do. And I don't really want to admit that to myself. So I'll just like do it because I have to, because I'm exhausted, because I have a job. But if I didn't
Yeah.
have a job, I wouldn't mind laundry at all,
So
right?
my few days off of getting to be, I guess, a stay-at-home girlfriend was the best. And I was really trying to prove to him that it would be amazing to just let me stay home. I baked a full chicken. I did all the laundry. I cleaned the entire house. I crushed it.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
And it was the best.
Yeah. And okay, let's be honest. What did he say to that?
Well, he loved it. He appreciated it. He's great. Um, and he says he's working on it, so we'll see. But I love having a
Oh.
career. I am very independent. I
Yep.
do love making my own money. I'm very goal oriented, and I kind of strive as I'm trying to like work my way up in my career. But yeah, at the end of the day, it would be really nice to just kind of be.
And the truth is, you may decide there are a lot of women who are in the financial position, right? That stay home for 7 years, for the
Yeah,
first 7. Like, because if there's 2 children and they're 2 years apart, right? You wait till
yeah,
the youngest one is in kindergarten, and then you're like, okay, it's time for me to go find my job, right? Like, lots of women are not not as many as we would like, right? But there are a lot of women who figure out how to do that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Yep,
possible.
it is possible. So, um, I don't know if this is true. And there's a part of me that's like, no, this isn't true. So I don't know why this popped in my head. So my left brain and my right brain are having a conversation with each other, right? My left brain is like, don't say that. And my right brain is like, no, it might not be exactly like that. But the word foster came into my head.
Okay.
And now we're on children. So my brain was already linked into children. So I'm like, is
Mhm.
it foster children or is it foster dogs? Which is a very different thing.
It is. It is.
Like, it's a hugely different scenario to have a foster child in your house versus a foster dog in your house.
Yes.
And I don't think either is out of the realm of possibility. I think both are in the realm of possibility. I think there's a heart. I think there you've had experience. Whoa. I think you've had experiences in your life where you have been exposed to foster. Not necessarily you personally, maybe you personally. I don't know your story well enough to know if you do personally, or if you've had them in your house, like foster children in your house, or if you had friends who were foster children. Like, I don't know if, like, or maybe there's an aunt in the rat family that's like, really into fostering and it's given you a heart for it. But I feel like that's not out of the realm of possibility. And then I know I saw the dog, right? There was a dog before we even started. There was a dog. So out of the realm, like, I think it'll be easier in your head to be like, yeah, I can foster a dog. I can foster
Yeah.
dogs.
Yeah, I can foster a dog.
It's much easier in my head to foster a dog than it is to foster a child.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Um, And I do think all the children you have ultimately will be your biological children. I don't see children that are not biological in your house ultimately. But I wouldn't I mean, we all run in weird circles, right? And it wouldn't be out of the realm of shocking to me if somebody was like, "Hey, I have this weird scenario. You and, your guy are fabulous. Can we just like do an emergency placement for 3 weeks in your house?" And then
Right.
the two of you talk about it and be like, 3 weeks and that's it, and then be like, okay, sure, right? But not be like, I don't know about this, right?
Yeah.
I could see maybe okay, reluctant,
Okay.
right? But ultimately, I don't necessarily see the children not being yours. But if you were to say yes to such a scenario, I think that that energy would be bigger, right?
Okay.
There would, like, if you choose to say yes to that scenario, if it were to open, the door were to open to you, I think there would be more energy for like actual foster adults to be, or children to be in your house. Right now, I see it as being a very small crack in a door, right?
Okay.
But if you were to press on the door a little bit, I think that would open easily for you.
Okay. I'm taking some notes because I want to like save all of this to kind of see what happens one day.
Well, I mean, this is gonna record, it's gonna be out there in the world,
Right.
right? And then, the other thing, because you could totally take the MP3 of it and pop it into a, AI, and
Okay.
it would, do the AI, like,
Oh, wow.
ver the verbal and putting it into a yeah. The other thing, is that, like, 5 years down the road, if you wanted to come back on, we
Oh,
could
that would be fun.
yeah, we could have you back on and be like, "You were dead wrong." And be like, "Okay."
We should. We should. Or I'll be like, here's my foster dog. And I
Um,
work in a hospice.
work in a hospice. Or, "No, I'm a stay-at-home mom and I love it."
Yeah, yeah. Just baked bread.
I'm exactly, I'm baking bread. Um, yeah, and I just see, like, things I see good communication between you and the guy, and, like, a mutually supportive situation for the 2 of you. That
Yeah.
it's just really comfortable that there's the there's the occasional eye rolling that happens, but the occasional eye rolling is more like, "I completely adore you and that's hilarious and I don't know what to say," more than it is, I'm judging what you're doing right now.
That is exactly what it is. Yes.
Like, there's the moment of like, "Did you really just do all right."
Yeah. 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 It's funny with him. We've only been dating a couple years at this point, but we actually grew up next door to each other before we became this.
Really?
Yeah, he was my neighbor, and then COVID happened, and that became the bubble. And we started dating, and dates were terrible over COVID because nothing was open. So he took me on a picnic for our first date, and went to the wrong location, and we ended up sitting in weeds that were like up to our knees, and
Oh,
it was terrible. But now it's like a funny story.
a funny story, the
We
first
had
date
a
was
good time. It was just a terrible location.
yeah, 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 exactly.
Yeah.
Um, so wait a minute. You were So I just have curious questions. I have
Yeah.
curious questions. So you were living next door to each other
Yep.
the whole time you were growing up,
Yes.
from like birth, or from like age 5 or like age 7?
No, so I guess a little later in life. I moved to the house next door in like sixth grade. So what
Oh,
are you like 10 at that point? Yeah,
11. Yeah, you're like
yeah,
11.
yeah. And then his sister's my best friend, so I was always around. But we never had like a one-on-one type of relationship or even communicate it. We would just see each other, say hi, and that was kind of it.
Did you have a crush on him?
Um, no, I mean, I thought he was cute, but I never thought anything would happen between us.
Right. How many years apart are you?
Just a year. He's a
Just a
year
year.
older.
He's a
Yeah.
year older. And then the best friend, is she the same age as you, or is she a year
She's a
younger?
year younger.
Year younger.
Yeah.
Okay. And so and so were you in like college still living at home, or graduate school still living at home, or neither one of those two things?
Yeah, so like he moved out of home for college and then came back afterwards.
Okay.
And then obviously like we were still both at home over COVID. We were what, 26 at the time?
Okay.
Um, I was 26, he was probably 27. And we did like a game night, and everybody went to bed and we were the only two up, and we like had a great conversation, and then he asked me out, and
Oh,
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and then it's been a year since we've lived together, so still going pretty good.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like you guys are like you've got good communication. And I feel like because you've seen each other enough in passing, right? You get each other. Like your best friend would tell stories at the dinner table over the wacky thing you did. So he's like, okay, I already know how she's like, she's wacky, right? And so
Yeah,
he was
yeah,
already aware of like who you were before, just like you were aware of who he was because she would tell
yeah,
you a story about, I don't really know his name, but he would get in trouble last night. He got in trouble last night because he did blah and blah, and you'd be like, "Oh, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, I was really close with his family because of his sister, so I already knew everybody, and obviously I knew him. We just didn't have that connection. But I heard of something like string theory, but not like scientific one. I don't know. It was on TikTok. They
Yeah,
said like you meet people kind of in your life and you keep crossing paths until it's the right time, I guess. So I think that's kind of us.
yeah. I could see that.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else you want to know?
Oh, I don't know. I get scared to ask those questions because I don't want to know too much. I kind of want to figure it out as it comes.
Yeah,
But, I really just have been trying to focus on myself and doing things to make me happy. So just trying to go in the right direction.
yeah. And I mean, this isn't tomorrow, right? You're not going to pick up tomorrow and be like, "I'm sorry, I'm going to a hospice," right? Like, I don't
Yeah,
see
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I see it further down the line. And the problem with further down the line is there's two problems with timing. Well, three. There's a bunch of problems with timing. One is that you never know what the timing actually is going to be. Like,
Yeah.
I was told somebody was doing something today, and then I've been checking the public records for the today, and it hasn't happened,
Yeah.
right? And that was in the middle of August. So that didn't happen. So will it happen? Probably, right? At some point. Doesn't mean that it happened the day that they said this is happening today.
Yeah.
The other thing is the farther out you get, the more opportunity there are for forks in the road.
Right.
Right? So like you move forward and then you're like, "Oh, I'm going to do this." And then you go this
Mhm.
way and then you go this way, and every time you make one of those shifts, the energy shifts as well. So
Right.
what I'm reading is the energy today for what the path looks like based on the trajectory you're currently on. But you could
Okay.
make 4, 5, 6 decisions that will lead you into completely different energy fields. And then if I
Mhm.
read you in that space, it's going to be a different decision,
Right.
if that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And the truth is we all have free will.
Yes.
So my best friend Cami, she used to say all the time that she was never ever going to write a book. Never. She said that there was people had prophetically told her over and over again she was going to write a book, and she's like, "I am never writing. I have no desire to write. I want nothing to do with that." Okay. Well, she's now like in a group of people who are putting together like a collection of like how their lives are being put. It's called Light Beamers, and it's coming out like in a week. So by the time
Okay.
this airs, it's like already out by 3 or 4 months. And she has a chapter in it, and she wrote it, and she's super excited about it. And like, do you remember when you said you were never going to write a book? And she's like, no, I never said that. Or she was like, don't talk about me to me about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the avenues are there, right? You get to decide what doors you're going to open and what doors you aren't.
Right.
And you have free will. You get to choose. And you don't always know like energetically things change, right? Like when I said like about the foster, there's like a door open for that if you wanted to go that way. Doesn't mean you do. You may look at that and be like, hell no, and shut that tightly, and then a
Yeah.
different door opens, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. This was fun.
Excellent.
This
Okay.
was really cool. I've been very excited to connect with you and just kind of hear what you were going to say. So it's really interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna hit stop on the recording now.
Okay.